As the Senate votes overwhelmingly to approve the containment mission, Junior Representative Thielkse of the Myriad Collective rises to voice a rare objection. Her crystalline body structure catches the light as she speaks, her voice melodious but firm. Have we forgotten the Arcturian incident? The species we underestimated 80 cycles ago. They too showed unexpected technological leaps. Senator Zix Terran's neck frills flatten in annoyance. The Arcturians were handled appropriately, he dismisses. Their resistance merely required additional persuasion. What remains unsaid? The persuasion meant the obliteration of their largest moon as a demonstration of Senate power. The resulting ecological devastation killed millions. Thielkse persists. Our preliminary observations indicate these humans exhibit unusual adaptability. They've survived multiple extinction-level events of their own making. Their conflict patterns show precisely why they must be contained, interrupts Zix Terran, triggering supportive murmurs across the chamber. Their history of self-destruction makes them uniquely dangerous. Imagine such violent instincts paired with unrestricted interstellar capability. The chamber's holographic displays shift to show human warfare through the ages, from primitive clubs to nuclear weapons, carefully edited to emphasize brutality while excluding context. No mention of the music, art, or philosophy that emerged alongside these weapons. No acknowledgement of the peace treaties, humanitarian efforts, or technological breakthroughs born from human cooperation. Meanwhile, 17 decks below the Senate floor, in the Classified Analysis Division, a young data specialist named Kirvosh frantically signals her supervisor. The predictive models for human development have been compromised, she whispers, pointing to anomalous code sequences. Someone altered the baseline assumptions to make Earth appear more primitive than our actual observations indicate. Her supervisor glances nervously at the monitoring devices on the wall. File your concerns through proper channels, he responds mechanically, sliding a security clearance card across to her with a subtle gesture that communicates what cannot be spoken aloud. Dangerous territory. Tread carefully. Back in the Senate chamber, the vote concludes with overwhelming support for the containment operation. Admiral Vos Kalim receives his commission on the chamber floor, his four-fingered hand placed ceremonially on the Senate charter. As the Admiral departs for his flagship, a private message reaches his neural implant. An astronomical payment authorization from hegemony mining interests, already staking claims to resource-rich asteroids in the Sol system. Officially, this mission is about galactic security. Unofficially, the mineral wealth of Earth's system has already been divided among Senate power brokers. Aboard his flagship, the Inevitable Ascendancy, Admiral Vos Kalim studies human military capabilities with growing contempt. Their nuclear weapons, how quaint. Their primitive space stations, barely more than pressurized metal cans. Their fractious global politics, surely they'll compete for Senate favor rather than mount unified resistance. Sir, his tactical officer interrupts. Long-range scans detected something unusual near the human outpost on their fourth planet. An energy signature we cannot identify. Interference from their sun, the Admiral dismisses. Plot the jump coordinates. We'll emerge at the edge of their system. A textbook approach vector for primitive species introduction. As the Senate fleet prepares for hyperspace transition, on Earth, in a hardened facility beneath the Pacific Ocean, the Unified Defense Council receives the final confirmation from their deep space monitoring array. Senate vessels mobilizing, announces the Watch Commander. Signatures match intelligence predictions. Operation Cassandra is now active. Around the table, representatives from nations once locked in bitter rivalry exchange solemn nods. The long-anticipated first contact will not be the one humanity hoped for, but it will be the one they've spent decades preparing to survive. The Senate fleet's first tactical error becomes apparent moments after the human warning. Admiral Vos Kalim's command to power weapons triggers the defensive grid's automated countermeasures. Quantum-linked minds detonate in precisely calculated patterns, creating rippling gravimetric distortions that tear through Senate shield harmonics as if they were specifically calibrated for this exact technology. They were. On the bridge of the inevitable ascendancy, chaos erupts as systems fail in cascading sequence. "Impossible!" shrieks the chief engineer, his tentacles writhing in distress. "They've matched our shield frequencies exactly. They're using our own classified resonance patterns." The Admiral's external composure barely masks his growing terror. "Launch interceptors. All vessels. Evasive pattern Sigma 9. But the human response has only begun. From Mars' shadow, previously undetected platforms activate, releasing swarms of autonomous drones barely larger than human hands. These converge on Senate vessels with terrifying precision, bypassing point defense systems, by moving in patterns no Senate tactical AI can predict. Rather than exploding, they attach to hull sections and begin broadcasting targeted electromagnetic pulses that systematically disable ship functions while preserving life support. "Sir," the communications officer reports, voice trembling, "we're receiving transmissions from the human fleet in perfect standard Galactic. They're addressing each ship commander by name and rank." The implications are staggering. Not only do the humans possess Senate technological knowledge, but they've also broken encryption protocols thought unbreakable. They know the command structure, officer rotations, even personal details. Through viewport windows, the Admiral watches in stunned disbelief as human vessels materialize around his fleet. Their design philosophy is unlike anything in Senate records, not the expected adaptations of reverse-engineered technology, but wholly original configurations emphasizing functionality over the aesthetic concerns that dominate Senate engineering. Brutally efficient, unmistakably built for war. The human ships maintain perfect formation discipline, their positioning eliminating any possibility of escape. No wasted movement. No flashy displays of power. Just cold, mathematical precision that communicates more clearly than any threat. "We could destroy you entirely. We choose not to." "Admiral," the tactical officer whispers, scans indicate their weapons remain powered down. "They're taking us prisoner." On the command channel, a human voice speaks calmly. "Senate vessels, this is General Helena Vostok of Earth Unified Defense. Your life support will be maintained. Your wounded will receive medical attention according to your species' physiological requirements, which we have studied extensively. Resistance is unnecessary and will be met with proportional response." A data packet accompanies the transmission, precise instructions for surrender procedures customized for each Senate species aboard. The level of detail is chilling. The humans know not just Senate tactical protocols, but cultural imperatives and biological necessities. In the Admiral's private quarters, a secondary communication channel activates, one that shouldn't exist on any Senate registry. A different human voice speaks, this one carrying authority beyond military command. "Admiral Vos Kalim, this is Director Asian of Earth Intelligence. Your Senate superiors instructed you to expect savages. Instead, you've encountered a civilization that has studied yours for decades. Your career doesn't need to end today. Your cooperation will be remembered when terms are negotiated. As boarding parties secure the disabled vessels, human soldiers move with disciplined efficiency. Unlike the barbaric hordes depicted in Senate intelligence briefings, they operate with silent precision, their expressions hidden behind polarized visors. They make no triumphant declarations, take no trophies, only secure critical systems, and begin extracting data cores with the methodical care of scientists preserving valuable specimens. On Earth, news of the engagement remains controlled. No public celebrations, no declarations of victory, only a brief statement. First contact procedures initiated. Situation developing. Behind this understatement lies a civilization that long ago accepted a harsh truth. In a hostile universe, peace must be secured through strength beyond question. The Senate Intelligence Directorate's headquarters on Proxima Centauri II. a facility whose existence is classified even from most Senate representatives, has been compromised. Not through brute force, but subtle infiltration so advanced it might have remained undetected if not for the humans' deliberate revelation. Director Kelvec stares at the evidence with 6 eyes that haven't blinked in hours. How long? He asks the assembled analysts. At least 15 standard years, responds his deputy, sliding the neural interface across the obsidian table. The altered identities are perfect. Genetic restructuring. Manufactured pheromone signatures. Implanted cultural knowledge. When activated, the interface displays surveillance footage of Senate citizens, now identified as human operatives. A Dravakian merchant who supplied components to military contractors. A Xerillian academic whose research papers influenced Senate strategic planning. Even a hegemony underminister with access to preliminary containment protocols. Most disturbing is the footage of a human operative who died in an unrelated accident 3 years ago. The autopsy reveals bioengineering beyond Senate medical science, synthetic organs designed to mimic alien biology, neural implants that rewrote the operative's own memories and personality. The psychological commitment is incomprehensible, whispers an analyst. These humans surrendered their identities, their very beings, to become different species. Some lived among us for decades, building legitimate lives, relationships. Focus, snaps Director Kelvec. Sentiment is irrelevant. Calculate the damage. A side screen displays the growing list of compromised systems. Defense grid initialization codes, fleet deployment patterns, sensor calibration frequencies, encrypted communication protocols. The Senate's most sacred technological secrets have been systematically harvested through patient, methodical intelligence gathering that spans generations of human operatives. Sir, interrupts a junior analyst, we've confirmed the infiltration source, the exchange program. Holographic displays show the historical records. 3 centuries ago, the Senate authorized a small-scale cultural study of Earth, abducting human specimens for biological research before returning them with memories supposedly erased. Standard procedure for pre-contact civilizations. The humans remembered, and they'd been preparing their response ever since. Meanwhile, in the secured chamber beneath the Senate floor, the Security Council reviews the most alarming discovery, a dormant subroutine embedded in the Senate's central defense mainframe. If activated, it could disable planetary shields across 17 core worlds simultaneously. We need a purge of all systems, demands the Draxian ambassador. Full spectrum reset. Impossible, counters the chief technologist. Our infrastructure is too integrated. A comprehensive purge would collapse civilization across multiple sectors. The implications terrify even the most hardened Senate officials. Humans haven't just defeated a containment fleet. They've penetrated the very foundations of Senate society, placing digital daggers at the throat of galactic civilization. In a separate chamber, medical researchers make another unsettling discovery while examining tissue samples from confirmed human infiltrators. The genetic modifications allowing humans to pass as alien species aren't rudimentary disguises. They're fundamental transformations at the cellular level, beyond anything Senate science can achieve. How did a supposedly primitive species develop this capability? Asks the chief medical officer. Her assistant's reply chills the room. What if they didn't develop it recently? What if they've possessed this technology all along and simply concealed their advancement? On Earth, in a facility known only as Looking Glass, the architects of humanity's infiltration program review their decades of work. Walls display the faces of operatives who sacrificed their humanity to become humanity's eyes and ears among the stars. Some are long dead. Others remain embedded, continuing their silent mission. Prepare Phase 2, orders the facility director, activating a communication system that will reach agents across hundreds of worlds. The Senate now knows we're watching. Time to show them what we've learned. Dr. Eleanor Chen's cybernetic enhancements pulse with subtle blue light beneath her skin as she stands perfectly centered in the Senate chamber. Unlike the gaudy status symbols of Senate elites, her augmentations are elegantly minimalist, functional rather than decorative. The semicircular scars at her temples mark direct neural interfaces. The faint silver tracery along her hand suggests subdermal weaponry that somehow bypassed the chamber's security protocols. You speak of laws and order, she continues, her voice modulated to carry perfect acoustics throughout the vast chamber. Yet we have documented 372 violations of your own constitution in your dealings with developing worlds. Her evidence materializes in the chamber's central holographic display, not through Senate systems, but from projectors built into her own body. The images are visceral. A Senate mining operation on Ta City, where native inhabitants were systematically enslaved. Biological weapons deployed against the Rigelian resistance. The deliberate introduction of genetic defects into the Proxima Centauri natives to ensure their permanent technological stagnation. Fabrications, shouts Senator Zix-Terran, his scales flushing deep crimson. Dr. Chen's smile is razor-thin. The metadata contains quantum-encrypted verification markers. Your own validation systems can confirm authenticity. She pauses, head tilting slightly. In fact, your security chief is doing so right now. Aren't you, Director Solordin? In the security control room, the mentioned director freezes, his 12 appendages hovering over control surfaces. How could she possibly know he was verifying her claims in real time? More disturbing, the verification is confirming every document as authentic Senate material. Back in the chamber, Dr. Chen continues with clinical precision. Humanity does not seek vengeance for your attempted invasion. We seek correction. Her tone shifts subtly, becoming almost professorial. Earth has studied the Senate's 3-millennium history. Your civilization began with noble ideals of cooperation, but devolved into bureaucratic imperialism. You've forgotten your founding purpose. She gestures, and the holographic display shifts to show Senate founding documents. Texts so ancient that many current representatives have never seen them. Passages about galactic stewardship and nurturing emerging sentience are highlighted, contrasted against recent containment directives. Earth proposes the restoration protocols, she states, transmitting detailed documentation to every representative's personal device simultaneously. A peaceful but non-negotiable restructuring of Senate approaches to developing worlds. The demands are breathtaking in scope. Immediate technological liberation for 34 contained civilizations, reparations funded by Senate core worlds, and Earth's membership not as a supplicant, but as a governing partner with oversight authority. When the chamber erupts in predictable outrage, Dr. Chen remains perfectly still, waiting for the precise moment when the cacophony reaches its peak before speaking again. She doesn't raise her voice, yet somehow it cuts through the noise with crystalline clarity. You mistake our patience for weakness, she states. Earth has maintained a policy of non-interference while observing your violations for 63 years. That patience has reached its limit. She activates a final holographic display, real-time footage from across Senate space, showing human stealth vessels decloaking simultaneously near critical Senate infrastructure. Not firing, not threatening, merely revealing their presence and perfect positioning for civilization-ending strikes. We could have chosen destruction, she says softly. Instead, we offer partnership. The Senate has 48 hours to ratify the restoration protocols. As she prepares to depart, the ancient Trillion representative, oldest among the Senate, shuffles forward, ignoring his colleagues' protests. You speak our founding principles as if born to them, the ancient alien wheezes. How is this possible? Dr. Chen's expression softens fractionally. Perhaps we understand your ideals because, in another time, they were also ours. She offers no elaboration, leaving the cryptic statement hanging in the air as she departs, a puzzle that will consume Senate historians for years to come. In her wake, she leaves not just demands but existential questions about humanity's true nature and the Senate's forgotten purpose. The Senate Emergency Council's closed session deteriorates into near violence as the militarist coalition pounds ceremonial staffs against the ancient floor. Supreme Commander Drax IV, his exoskeleton battle-scarred from 3 centuries of warfare, towers over the central table. The humans must be exterminated immediately, he insists, neural tendrils flaring with aggressive pheromones. Gather every fleet, every weapon. Overwhelm them before their influence spreads. Across the chamber, Reform Movement representatives maintain a united front despite their diverse physiologies. Senator Lyria of the Aquarian Worlds responds with characteristic directness. And if we fail again, your solution guarantees either genocide or extinction, theirs or ours. The political earthquake triggered by humanity's demands has exposed fault lines throughout Senate society. Junior species, long marginalized by the ancient powers, find their voices amplified as the established order trembles. Centuries of resentment surface in diplomatic channels traditionally dominated by the founding species. Meanwhile, in the exclusive enclave of mercantile guild leadership, human representatives have arrived by invitation, a precedent-shattering breach of Senate protocol that would have been unthinkable days earlier. Guild Overseer Marntel, whose financial empire spans 17 star systems, studies the prototype floating between them, a human quantum communication device that transmits instantly across unlimited distances without detection. Senate communication relies on hyperspace relays, expensive, detectable, and significantly slower. One device, the Human Trade Representative explains, would be worth approximately 60 billion credits on the open market. We're offering exclusive production rights to the Guild at 1/5 standard licensing fees. The mercantile guilds have already calculated potential profits from human technological exchange, some so vast they threaten to restructure the galactic economy. Old money trembles before new possibilities. In the ancient temple of cosmic symmetry on Alteris Prime, the luminaries, a religious order predating the Senate itself, conduct unprecedented rituals. Their high oracle emerges from meditation looking shaken, pupils dilated in species-specific signs of religious ecstasy. The ancient texts speak truth, she announces to assembled acolytes. The lost children return bearing the original light. The circle completes. Religious fervor spreads through populations already destabilized by rumors of human capabilities. On 17 worlds, spontaneous shrines appear depicting human figures with symbolism traditionally reserved for progenitor imagery. Senator Zix Terran, once humanity's most vocal opponent, finds himself fighting for political survival as private communications exposing his connection to illegal biological weapons testing circulate through Senate information networks. The precision of the leak, only his most damaging secrets, authenticated with unquestionable verification markers, bears human intelligence signatures. He is not alone. Across Senate space, the most aggressive anti-human voices find themselves neutralized through personalized information warfare. Not crude blackmail, but strategic revelation of precisely the information needed to undermine their credibility. A political decapitation strike executed with surgical precision. In the Senate Intelligence Directorate, analysts track an unprecedented phenomenon. Direct human communication with contained species bypassing Senate monitoring systems entirely. The primitive civilizations previously isolated from galactic society are receiving technological packages, medical advancements, and Senate suppression documentation tailored to their specific development needs. Most concerning for Senate leadership, these packages include simplified defensive technologies allowing even pre-spaceflight civilizations to detect and potentially disable Senate containment assets in their systems. The careful hierarchy of galactic power, maintained for millennia through technological superiority, faces collapse within a single generation. On the contested border world of Lyra IV, once subjugated native populations rise against Senate authority using tactics identical to historical Earth resistance movements. Their crude weapons are suddenly supplemented with devices capable of disabling Senate military technology. Their previously disorganized rebellion now operates with sophisticated strategic coordination. They are not the only ones. Across Senate space, carefully balanced power structures collapse as long-oppressed species find themselves unexpectedly empowered, not through direct human intervention, but through precisely targeted support that catalyzes indigenous resistance. The Senate, accustomed to moving with glacial deliberation, finds itself forced to respond to a crisis evolving at breakneck speed, while humanity watches, waiting for their decision with the patience of predators who have already positioned themselves for victory regardless of their prey's next move. The Senate emergency delegation arrives at Earth's Lumid diplomatic outpost expecting tense negotiations. Instead, they find organized chaos, a civilization mobilizing for existential war with practiced efficiency. The human diplomatic liaison, a stern-faced woman introduced only as Colonel Hassan, wastes no time on pleasantries. The Scourge Vanguard fleet bypassed your Rigel defensive line 6 hours ago, she states, leading them through corridors where soldiers and civilians move with coordinated purpose. Your early warning system failure wasn't a malfunction. It was targeted Scourge infiltration. The Senate representatives exchange bewildered glances. How could Earth know details of an attack that Senate High Command itself is still struggling to verify? The answer becomes clear as they enter Earth's Strategic Command Center. The massive spherical chamber contains a real-time holographic model of the galaxy, with Scourge fleet movements tracked in pulsing red against Senate defensive positions in blue. The detail and accuracy surpass anything in Senate military headquarters. Your monitoring networks rely on hyperspace detection arrays, explains a human general without looking up from tactical displays. Scourge vessels use quantum displacement. They don't leave traditional hyperspace signatures. We track their gravitational shadows instead. Around them, human analysts process information at speeds that leave the Senate observers disoriented. Tactical adjustments, resource allocations, and orbital defense reconfigurations flow through command channels with minimal verbal communication. A military machine operating with algorithmic precision. The delegation is escorted deeper beneath the lunar surface to a facility marked XENOXIONTENMENTALPHA. Inside, behind layers of exotic containment fields that shimmer with technologies unknown to Senate science, floats a nightmare made flesh, a Scourge infiltration unit. The creature's biomechanical body pulses with unsettling rhythms. Its asymmetrical limbs end in implements designed for purposes the Senate representatives can only guess at. Most disturbing is its central sensory cluster, not eyes, but something almost like eyes, tracking their movements with unmistakable intelligence. We captured it during an attempted infiltration of Jupiter's orbital habitats, Colonel Hassan explains clinically. It's the 4th specimen we've secured. The senior Senate representative, Ambassador Trelvox, can barely form words. When did you first encounter the Scourge? A new figure enters, an older human with the bearing of deep authority. Officially, never, until today, states Director Asian of Earth Intelligence, the same voice that addressed Admiral Vos Kalim during the fleet capture. Unofficially, we detected their long-range scout vessels 23 years ago. We've been preparing since. On surrounding screens, the delegates witness Earth's preparations unfolding across the solar system. Massive defense platforms emerge from camouflaged positions in the asteroid belt. Planetary shield generators power up around colony worlds. Fleets of warships, unlike anything shown during the Senate confrontation, move into defensive formations with practiced precision. But why keep this secret from the Senate? Demands Ambassador Trelvox. The Scourge threatens all sentient life. Director Asian's expression hardens. Because the last time the Scourge invaded, the Senate's response was containment of any species that might develop effective countermeasures. Your archives were purged, but we found records in abandoned progenitor outposts. The Senate's fear of emerging species stems directly from the First Scourge War. He leads them to a laboratory where human scientists work alongside artificial intelligences analyzing scourge biological samples. The scourge adapts to predictable responses. Senate military doctrine hasn't fundamentally changed in millennia. The scourge evolved specifically to counter it. They target pattern recognition centers in sentient brains, technology that follows established development curves. The most chilling revelation comes in the tactical briefing room. The human general activates a holographic simulation showing Senate defense patterns against previous scourge incursions. Your civilization responds to threats with beautiful symmetry, perfect coordination, she explains. The scourge uses this against you. Your very unity becomes your vulnerability. They infiltrate synchronized systems, turning strengths into weaknesses. She contrasts this with simulations of human defensive responses, chaotic, asymmetrical, constantly shifting. Humanity evolved through constant warfare against ourselves. Our military doctrines are contradictory, our strategies intentionally unpredictable. We've developed technologies specifically designed to appear irrational to logical analysis. The truth dawns on the Senate delegation with terrible clarity. The same unpredictability that made humans seem dangerous to Senate sensibilities makes them the perfect counter to the scourge's adaptive strategies. Your choice is simple, Director Ashen concludes. Accept our leadership in this conflict and survive, or maintain Senate authority and face extinction. Either way, humanity fights, with or without you. In the Joint Earth-Senate Fleet Command Center, chaos erupts during the third major engagement with Scourge forces. Communication systems are failing across the defensive line as Scourge biotech viruses infiltrate Senate encryption protocols. Commander Serena Hayes of Earth's 7th Tactical Division reacts without hesitation, inputting an emergency override sequence into her neural interface. Clarion Protocol active, she announces, her cybernetics pulsing with blue-white energy. Instantly, Senate systems across the battle group reconfigure to an ancient communication architecture that bypasses standard channels entirely. The Senate's chief communications officer stares in disbelief. That's a progenitor command protocol. How could you possibly? Later, Commander Hayes interrupts, already coordinating flanking maneuvers against Scourge vessels attempting to split the Allied fleet. Her tactical adjustments flow with instinctive precision, as though she's fought this exact battle before. On the Senate research vessel, Eternal Inquiry, Syn-archaeologist Dr. Van Terrell works alongside human scientists examining recovered Scourge biological components. When the Scourge tissue samples unexpectedly activate, releasing microscopic spores that breach initial containment, the Senate staff freeze in panic. The human researchers, however, respond with practiced efficiency, implementing countermeasures that suggest intimate familiarity with Scourge biology. You've seen this before, Dr. Van Terrell realizes, watching a human scientist neutralize the spores with a compound that shouldn't exist, one synthesized specifically to target Scourge cellular structures. Not exactly, the human replies, securing the final containment seal. But something in me knew what to do. She seems as surprised by her instinctive response as the Senate scientist. These incidents multiply across the front as the war intensifies. Human commanders repeatedly demonstrate uncanny insight into Scourge tactics. Human scientists intuitively understand Scourge biological systems. Human engineers instinctively counter Scourge technical adaptations. In the secured archives beneath the Senate homeworld, ancient security protocols deactivate as human genetic signatures are detected in proximity, locks responding to keys thought lost for 50 millennia. Inside, the Senate's most trusted archivists and highest clearance representatives witnessed historical records awakening, holographic displays showing the First Senate, the first contact with the Scourge, and the desperate final gambit of the progenitor civilization. The records tell a story erased from official history, facing extinction. The progenitors, founders of galactic civilization, encoded their collective knowledge, battle experience, and scientific understanding into an experimental genome. They established Earth as a protected evolutionary crucible where their descendants could develop naturally, hopefully evolving new strengths and perspectives, while carrying the subconscious legacy of their ancestors. The Crucible Project, whispers the chief archivist, reading the ancient progenitor text. They seeded Earth with genetically modified humans carrying dormant progenitor knowledge, then established protective protocols to prevent interference. The records reveal why Senate exploratory missions to Earth always ended in equipment failure or inexplicable redirection. The progenitors had established a quarantine system to ensure their experiment remained untainted, a system that failed only when human development reached the threshold where they could detect and reverse engineer crashed Senate vessels. Most profound is the revelation about human intuition, the seemingly random flashes of insight, the creative leaps, the occasional inexplicable knowledge. All are manifestations of genetic memory activating when needed. Not conscious access to progenitor knowledge, but subconscious guidance emerging in moments of need or crisis. They didn't just preserve their knowledge, the human ambassador realizes, reviewing the ancient records. They preserved their essence, their drive to explore, create, and protect life, while allowing evolution to forge something new from that foundation. Across the Senate homeworld, the news spreads with religious intensity. Many Senate species were themselves uplifted or created by the progenitors. To them, humans represent not just allies but living connections to their own creators, simultaneously children and ancestors of the galaxy's founding civilization. For Senate citizens raised on myths of the vanished progenitors, humans transform overnight from primitive threats to living legends. Cultural responses range from religious veneration to existential crisis. Some see humans as rightful inheritors of progenitor authority. Others fear replacement by these genetic successors who blend ancient wisdom with evolutionary innovation. The human leadership, however, seems almost as surprised by these revelations as the Senate itself, suggesting that while humanity carried progenitor legacy in their genes, they had remained largely unaware of their true heritage until circumstances triggered these dormant memories and capabilities. The final confrontation with the Scourge unfolds at the Galactic core, where ancient progenitor defense installations dormant for millennia reactivate at human command. The combined fleet, Senate vessels retrofitted with human technologies alongside Earth's purpose-built warships, forms patterns of deliberate asymmetry that confound Scourge tactical prediction systems. They're adapting, warns Admiral Koshvar of the Senate Core Defense. Standard doctrine suggests immediate withdrawal and regrouping. Fleet Admiral Amara Chen, great-granddaughter of Dr. Elmer Chen, who confronted the Senate years earlier, shakes her head. No, press the attack precisely when they expect retreat. 17. Initiate Mobius Protocol. Throughout the human vessels, specialized neural interfaces activate as the Sevens. Humans with rare genetic expressions allowing unprecedented access to dormant progenitor tactical knowledge, synchronize their consciousness. These individuals, once diagnosed with neurological disorders on Earth, now channel the collective battle wisdom of an ancient civilization through their uniquely structured minds. The resulting battle strategy defies conventional analysis. Human ships execute maneuvers that appear suicidal until the pattern emerges. They're creating a four-dimensional tactical sculpture that systematically dismantles Scourge formations by exploiting weaknesses invisible to normal perception. On the command deck, a young savant named Michael whispers through his neural link, "I see them now. They're not invaders. They're refugees." This insight catalyzes the final phase. As the Scourge central node is surrounded, human communication specialists establish direct contact using protocols that bypass traditional translation, speaking directly to the collective consciousness that guides the Scourge biomechanical units. What emerges is a revelation that transforms galactic understanding. The Scourge is indeed a refugee consciousness from a collapsed parallel universe. Their consumption of organic matter isn't malevolence but desperate survival. They require specific biological compounds found only in sentient species to maintain their quantum coherence in our universe. We've been fighting them for 30,000 years, murmurs a Senate elder, watching the communication unfold. Never once did we attempt to understand. The human diplomatic team, led by Ambassador Rishi Patel, proposes an unprecedented solution. Designated uninhabited systems, where synthetic alternatives to the compounds the Scourge need can be manufactured and provided. Not capitulation or destruction, but coexistence through innovation. In the aftermath, as the Senate prepares for traditional victory celebrations, humanity surprises them once again. Rather than claiming progenitor authority or demanding Senate submission, Earth representatives call for a constitutional convention to establish the new Galactic Concord. The gathering takes place on neutral ground, a previously uninhabited world named Concordia. Representatives from every Senate species attend, alongside delegates from newly liberated, contained civilizations, and, most surprisingly, observers from the Scourge consciousness. During the proceedings, the human delegation presents a comprehensive analysis of Senate governance failures alongside proposed reforms. Their approach synthesizes progenitor wisdom with distinctly human innovations, emphasizing flexibility, diversity, and adaptation over rigid hierarchy. The progenitors created a galactic civilization that lasted 30 millennia. An extraordinary achievement, acknowledges Earth's chief diplomat, but they also created the conditions for stagnation. Their greatest error was assuming their initial design could remain unchanged as the galaxy evolved. She gestures to the assembled representatives. We are not here to replace one dogma with another, but to establish governance that learns and grows. The progenitors' genetic legacy lives in humanity, yes, but Earth's legacy is continuous adaptation. Together, they make us not perfect rulers, but perhaps useful guides for this next era. Senator Zix Terran, once humanity's fiercest opponent, now a chastened advocate for reform, approaches the human delegation during a recess. His once vibrant scales have dulled with age, his bearing humbled by recent history. I oppose your every effort, he acknowledges. I believed containing Earth was necessary for galactic stability. Ambassador Patel nods. Many on Earth wanted vengeance when we discovered the Senate's intentions. We had the capability. Yet you chose a different path, Zix Terran observes. Not conquest, not retribution, but reconstruction. Why? The human's answer comes after thoughtful silence. Because genetic tests confirmed what many suspected. You too carry fragments of progenitor DNA, modified for different evolutionary paths. We are distant cousins, Senator. Family argues, even fights, but in the end, family endures. As the final charter for the Galactic Concord is ratified, a monument rises at the center of the new capital, not a statue of triumph, but a memorial garden representing every sentient species. At its heart stands a simple marker with words in both progenitor script and modern languages. The stars belong to no one and everyone. We are their stewards, not their masters. Below, almost as an afterthought, a smaller inscription captures humanity's unique contribution to galactic philosophy. Next time, perhaps just say hello.